Young ladies and gentlemen, greetings from your respective positions. Once again, you are welcome here on your very beloved platform, the Tribune of Awakening Consciousness. So, this is the headline of international news. This famous agreement, the new proposal of an agreement that the Americans have offered both to Ukraine and the European partners during this meeting that took place on April 17th, 2025 in Paris. This agreement continues to be talked about, even though the agreement has not yet been signed as such, definitively, but the agreement continues to be talked about. What's happening in this agreement that we saw in one of our video conferences earlier? There are two main surprises that President Donald Trump is making to Ukraine. Not only to Ukraine, but also, yes, especially to Ukraine, but also to the Western partners who are very surprised on this evening of April 18, 2025. So, what is the first surprise? The first surprise is the fact that America decides to recognize the Russian territories, at least the Ukrainian territories occupied by Russia and outlined in the memorandum in the 2022 referendum, starting with Crimea. So America now will recognize Crimea. So America recognizes Crimea as Russian territory. So, as part of the agreement, Ukraine will also have to recognize. And if Ukraine recognizes Crimea as Russian, Ukraine will cease all its negative activities concerning Crimea. You know that the magistrates, the judges of Crimea, were threatened in 2024 by President Zelensky, as he accused them, whether they were magistrates or journalists of Crimea. They were accused of having pledged allegiance to the Russian administration that governs the locality today. This is one of the reasons why they blew up the Crimea issue in 2024. So, given how much Ukraine values this territory, it is then absurd for Ukraine and Ukrainians to see that America, on which they themselves rely to regain all the territories occupied by Russia, is considering recognizing Crimea. Here is the first surprise. This surprise is a bit more unpleasant in the eyes of Kiev and the Western partners. But the second surprise is very important. It's a kind of surprise in the form of a trap. A surprise in the form of a trap. So, you know that for some time now, Donald Trump has loudly proclaimed to anyone who will listen. He said that he needs Ukraine to repay the debt that was lent to them that America had to deal with. In other words, the aid that America provided to Ukraine, Donald Trump says it's a debt, and that this debt should be repaid. But Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, has never acknowledged these more than $120 billion as a debt. It was $350 billion, but they reduced it to $120 billion. Some speak of $90 billion. So Volodymyr Zelensky has always said that he does not recognize that amount as a debt. He has been very clear. He says he does not recognize it. It is not a debt. He says that what he knows is that America was helping Ukraine. It's aid and not a debt. But Donald Trump had insisted a lot on this. And Zelensky also continued to insist. So finally, what is happening in the new draft agreement? Donald Trump was very clever. He dodged this part, so he did not include this part in the agreement, but he found a subtlety, a new technique through which he can introduce, obviously, this matter of debt repayment, but which can be accepted both by Ukraine and accepted by America, since it aligns with the American idea. So what is Donald Trump doing? He introduces a mechanism that involves repaying this debt, but without it being said that it's a debt being repaid. I don't know if you understand. Donald Trump is doing a great job. We will see right away. First, we need to start by sharing this video conference. It needs to be shared as much as possible. Thank you for sharing it in all the groups, and don't forget to click on subscribe to subscribe. Subscribe to the page. This allows you to no longer miss the video conferences. There you go. And for all those who haven't yet activated the notification bell, it needs to be activated. This allows you to no longer miss a single piece of international news. So let's go with the official information. You will be able to understand better. So what is being said? According to the official information, the draft agreement on resources between Ukraine and the United States of America, as well as the related memorandum, do not explicitly mention Kiev's debt. So this matter of Kiev's debt is not explicitly mentioned. But the draft agreement provides for a mechanism to repay American aid. So it includes a mechanism that requires Ukraine to repay the American aid. So they no longer say American debt, but rather American aid. That means what America provided to Ukraine was not aid. It was a debt that will need to be repaid. So Donald Trump is being clever. He finds the right word to always try to include in the agreement that Ukraine must repay. So, and this statement was made by Taras Kachan, who is the Deputy Minister of Economy and Trade Representative of Ukraine, who made this statement on the Rada channel. So, what needs to be said? This gentleman continues. He says this: it is the Deputy Minister of Economy of Ukraine. He says no one at the United States is currently talking about a debt that we should repay. It is rather about designing a system. Yes, thanks to the activities of this fund and future investments in Ukraine, the United States as partners, and Ukraine as well, will earn at least the equivalent of the aid provided, if not more. The exact formula is yet to be defined. This is precisely our current task. This is what he explained. So they are going to set up a mechanism like, what do you call it? They are going to set up a mechanism. You know, like Donald Trump had announced that they are going to create a fund. This fund will be there. Through this fund, Ukraine will take its share. The United States will take their share. So, the second surprising fact is this. In conclusion, Donald Trump is using another technique. And here is the Deputy Minister of Economy and Finance, who says they are working tirelessly on this. They are working on the technique. You know, they are working on the system, on the mechanism that would allow the restitution of American aid. But in any case, since when you lend money, one must, I don't know how to say it, but since when you help someone with money, there you go, I got it, you help someone. And then afterwards, you ask the person to repay the aid you lent them. It's absurd, really. But this is the situation we are facing. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was the headline news internationally. Thank you for sharing it as much as possible. I will get back to you shortly with new news by the grace of the Almighty. This was the voice of your one and only samurai.